G'day, Mark from Mustard Bikes here. It's a little bit back to the future today. In the 80s and 90s, out of Japan, the small and mid-sized inline 4 bikes were all the rage, and Kawasaki have brought that flavour back in 2023 with their Kawasaki ZX4-R and RR. It's an amazing bike, and we've got one of our tail tidies here today that we're going to run you through the installation process from start to finish, just to increase the looks a little bit more. Before we get started though, we're going to need a few tools. This install was filmed with an early release bike. Sometimes these bike designs change over time, so please check the description below to see if we've listed any changes. To get the job done, you're going to need a 13mm socket. In our case, we've got it on an extension, which will be quite handy. We've got a 10mm spanner, a 4mm and a 5mm Allen key, a pair of side cutters or scissors, a pair of long nose pliers will be handy, and also a Phillips head screwdriver. In the box, you'll find the card that directed you to this video, a link wire to hook up to the stock wiring harness, a small bag with the number of nuts and bolts and cable ties, and then underneath all these packing peanuts, wrapped in paper, you'll find the plate mount for the tail tidy, as well as the mounting arms for the tail tidy. In the bag, you'll find a number of cable ties, 4 M8 nylock nuts, 2 M6 nylock nuts, and 2 12mm long countersunk bolts. Now we've got everything together to complete the install, we're going to get started. Take your key, and then remove the pillion seat, just by lifting the front up and sliding it back. And then remove the rider's seat as well by pulling on this little cable here. Next, we're going to remove the 6 push pins holding on the trim piece. Remove the pins by pushing the centre down with a blunt object. We can now remove the trim piece by lifting up in the centre of the panel and then sliding it forwards. Next, we need to disconnect the wiring that goes to the rear fender. You'll find that located underneath the seat latch here. You're looking for a plastic sheath, and if you pull that back, in one you'll find a blue and a black plug. Push the tabs on the plugs to disconnect them. In the other sheath, you'll find a white plug. To disconnect the white plug, push the centre tab down and pull the plugs apart. Next, remove the wires from the rubber cable clip by lifting the rubber upwards to get access. With everything disconnected, we can now use our 5mm Allen key to remove the 4 bolts holding on the rear fender. Just be careful as you remove the last bolt that you're holding the fender so it doesn't fall away from the bike. With the rear fender completely removed from the bike, we can now work towards assembling the tail tidy, ready to reinstall it. If you're fitting your stock indicators, we need to remove these from the stock fender before we assemble the tail tidy. To do that, we're going to start by pulling this plastic section up here, just feeding the wires through, and we can then lift this plastic segment up and pull it back to remove it from the fender. We're then also going to take our 4mm Allen key and remove these 2 bolts here. We can now disconnect this cable catch. Remove the cables from that. We'll also feed them through the top of the rear fender here. And we're also going to get our side cutters and just clip through the cable tie here. can now turn the fender upside down. We're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove these two screws. We can now lift this metal frame out of the way, and as we do so, you'll see the indicator wires are fed through the sides, so we'll just feed those out. Which then gives us access to the keeper plates on these indicators. So we're going to take our Phillips head screwdriver and undo the little screw that's just in here. Now these are quite tight and you may need a little bit of force to get these undone. Just be careful not to strip the little screw itself. With the screw out, we can then remove this keeper plate here. Then underneath here is another plate. And then lastly, inside here, you'll see there's a plastic keeper, which we're going to remove with the needle nose pliers. And with that, we can pull the indicator out of the housing. So just going to feed that out. Put that aside. Now that we've done the one side, the other side will go a lot easier. And with that, these indicators are ready to fit to the tail tidy. Take the plate mount from your tail tidy and then take one of your indicators, and you'll notice on the bottom of the indicators there's this little hole here. When the indicator is installed, that hole needs to be facing downwards. So this one goes on the left hand side here. Just going to feed that through. And then we're going to feed the indicator into the mount. And then we're basically going to do the reverse process of the removal. So we're going to take one of these spacers, feed it onto the wire and feed that in. Take the little backing plate and fit that back to the indicator. Make sure it's clipped under the rubber. Then the keeper plate. And lastly, the screw. And then of course, we do the same to the other side. With both indicators fitted, we're now ready to fit this plate mount to the mounting arms of the tail tidy itself. We're going to take the plate mount. I'm just going to move this wire out of the way, place the arms underneath so that these two holes here line up with these two holes here. And then we're going to take one of our countersunk bolts, sit that through, and then on the other side we're going to fit one of the M6 nylock nuts. And then, of course, we put the other bolt in the other side. We can then take our Phillips head screwdriver and our 10mm spanner and just do them up snug, but not fully tight. We can now undo this little coil of wire. And we're just going to feed all of this wiring through this hole in the middle of the arms here. Take the LED bolt wire, then the indicators. We're then going to tidy up this wiring here using some of the cable ties. I'm going to start just by running a cable tie through this little gap down here in the arm and taking one of the indicator wires. So you're just going to run that in there nicely like that. Do that up and trim the excess off the cable tie. Same to the other side. Then we're going to flip it over. And we're going to do the same process up the side arms. So on the side arms, you'll see there's these two little notches. That's where we're going to run the cable tie. So on one side, you need to include the wire for the LED bolt. So just run that through there. Place that in the two notches. Tighten that up. Again, trim the excess of the cable tie and repeat on the other side. That assembly is then ready to fit to the bike. When we refit the tail tidy to the bike, we're going to reuse the original bolts, but we won't be using the split washers, so we need to remove those first. With the tail tidy assembled, we can fit it to the bike. So we're going to need the tail tidy assembly, one of the original mounting bolts, and one of the M8 nylock nuts that came in the kit. Now we're going to put the first bolt in the right rearmost hole, which is this one here. And we're going to feed the bolt up from underneath. And with that in place, we can then offer the tail tidy up to the bike. We're going to feed the wiring through the original hole. And feed all that through. And then offer the tail tidy to the bike and place that nut on top of the bolt. That will then allow the tail tidy to hang in place. We can now go ahead and fit the other 4 bolts. When installing the left bolts, don't forget to reinstall the cable management clip. With all 4 bolts installed, we can now tighten them up using our 5mm Allen key and our 10mm socket, making sure as we go that we don't pinch the wiring that goes through the bike. We can now connect the wiring. The first step to do is to connect the link wire to the LED bolt by attaching the red wire to the red wire and the black wire to the black wire. Once the link wire is connected, we can plug in the grey connector to the white connector on the bike, as well as the indicator connectors, which are blue and black. Once connected, pull the sheath back up the wiring harness. Before we go any further, and while we still have easy access under the seat, we're just going to do a quick safety check. Take our key, pop it in the ignition, and then we're just going to check that all our lighting's working. So check that your number plate light's lit up, that your indicators are working on the correct sides, and I also like to just check the brake, just in case we've accidentally disconnected the wrong connector or something similar. If your LED light for the number plate doesn't light up, just try swapping those two wires around on the link wire. Quite often that's going to be the problem. Now that we're sure that that all works, we can continue on. We're going to start by taking all the wiring and tidying it up in the existing cable management clip. We're going to do the final alignment on the product, on the plate mount. We're just going to make sure that this is level and that we're happy with that. Once we're happy with how level it is, we can take our 10mm spanner and our Phillips head screwdriver and just tighten off these bolts. Now, you may also find that it needs some alignment side to side. If you do need to do that, you can undo the 4 mounting bolts and just rejig it till it's straight and then do those back up. Reinstall the trim plate, ensuring that all the fairing panels are properly engaged and the 2 pins are pushed into their locating rubbers. We can then reinstall the 6 push pins, resetting the push pins by pushing out the centers as shown here. Fit your rider's seat and your pillion seat, and then all that remains is to fit your number plate and go and find out your favourite roads. After a few rides, it's worth just going over everything, double checking that all the nuts and bolts are tight, that everything's still operating correctly. We hope this video has helped you with your install. If you haven't yet purchased this product and you'd like to, or you'd like to see our other products, mustardbikes.com. We have a whole range of tail tidies for a number of different bikes, as well as some additional products such as the mirror block-off plates that we have fitted to this ZX4. Don't forget to tag us on your Instagram pictures, get in touch with us on Facebook. We love hearing back from our customers. Thanks for watching, until next time. No, that's not correct. Is it lunchtime yet?